you know how it is sometimes when
Yeah.
you go out, you know, you have a few cocktails or red stripes for me
Yes.
that night.
Is
And
it red stripes?
and yeah, we ended up going home.
We
together.
did. We went.
We did.
We went to my mum's place, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
in,
in Victoria.
correct.
Yeah.
And so we shared an intimate moment.
We did.
We did. We shared an intimate moment, and I thought it was really cool because for me it was like I slept with a mate, which for me meant more because of just trust issues I had with new people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what a great storyline. Do you know what I mean? When we were younger, it didn't, the shoe didn't fit. But now, years later, I'm 30. You must have been 28 or 29.
Yeah.
And
28 maybe.
how great. We're grown-ass men.
Yeah.
Because how old are you now?
I'm 36.
So you're 2 years younger than me. Right.
Yeah.
So you must have been in your late 20s. And then,
Yeah.
fast forward, I'm doing a show in Ukraine. And I'm getting my hair done by my hairdresser. And then I get a call from one of my really close friends.
Yeah.
And he tells me some news that was really shocking to me and left me quite still because I was just like, well, why didn't that come from Nuno?
Yeah.
And what he told me, it was like, with some urgency, did you sleep with Nuno? And I was like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Nice to see you too. And he was like, no, Cisco, did you? And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, well, because, Nuno's left the country so much. He came back because he is now HIV positive. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh.
Right.
Because we had been physical.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just remember at that point, I was just like, damn, I felt really, really shocked because I heard it from someone who wasn't even at the club.
Yeah.
It was like hearsay. And I was just like, I remember calling you with what I called, this is my hand clapping syllable days that I'm not that girl anymore. But I remember being really angry with you, quite threatening as well. And I remember my anger where my anger came from was because of I guess it was kind of like, it felt like a betrayal because we had known each other for so long, but also the stigma attached to HIV.
Then
I was just thinking about myself.
As a straight male, I don't understand the taboo about HIV. Right. Obviously, I'm aware of the side effects of what it can cause.
Yeah.
But it's an illness, and all humans experience illnesses. Like, we've just lived through a pandemic where people are spreading an illness every day, and we still go out in the streets. We still, like...
It's because this particular one, it was always promoted with a death sentence. Because when you get HIV, automatically you get AIDS.
Yeah.
And that's not the case.
Yeah. Okay.
And so that stigma and the propaganda that was pumped into that, unfortunately, still has the ripple effect. What is up, mi gente? Francisco Gomez here, and welcome to the Progressing Male. Here, alongside my co-host, we are going to fight head-on with cancel culture. Because if we say something wrong or out of pocket, don't judge us, don't cancel us, educate us, talk to us. This is a space where we access emotions. Yes, guess what? Men can do that, and we talk the good talk to fight the good fight. Now, as you know, if this is your first one, welcome. And if it isn't, I've got my right and left pillar always, Kane Silver and 𝗣𝗿 Nosworthy.
Yeah. Ha-na-na-na.
And today, boys,
Yes.
it is time to bring some fresh energy, a bit of guest moment.
Okay.
I like the head roll.
Looking nice. I know, my hula hoop neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nuno!
Hey. What do you do,
Oh my
baby?
God,
What do you
so
do?
Okay, so Nuno, backstory. Nuno and I have known each other. I think we met at 2005.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
probably 20 years old, 19,
Yeah,
20.
I was 19, yeah.
Yep.
20s,
And we met,
yeah.
so there's a club called Heaven.
Yeah.
And there was specifically a black night, or back in the day it was called an urban night, on a Wednesday where all the black folk or people of colour used to go
So
to
good.
on a Wednesday fruit machine.
So good.
And as I was blossoming as a homosexual,
As was I.
that's where I found my voice, really. That was my training ground when it came to like fashion and like how to express myself with other queer people. And Nuno was one of the first people that I met, probably in the
Yeah.
first year and a half.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we had mutual friends or whatever, but we ended up just always saying hello because I
Yeah.
think you knew what I did for a living.
Yeah, and you danced. I kind of danced a little bit, not like
Yeah.
you did, but I was into dance, and we both had long curly hairs.
Yes, you
Come
did,
on.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And so I remember just always being so polite. And
Yeah,
every Wednesday, it
same.
would be
We
a
always had
face that I always used to see. And
Oh,
yeah, it was.
flashbacks.
It's so young, so
yeah.
young. And we used to see each other every Wednesday. And then
Yeah.
once Fruit Machine stopped, a group of those people that you would see regularly, you just stopped.
Right.
Yeah.
Fast forward to 2015, I just moved to LA. I just moved to LA and I came back for a job. And I went to, we have a mutual friend who's a DJ. And he hosted a night in East London. And I hadn't seen Nuno, I would say.
Was it 2015? Yeah, we hadn't seen each other.
For years. 2015, when I saw you again, I hadn't seen you probably for a good 4 years.
Yeah.
If not more. Not
Yeah,
even in the
'cause-
street, not even in passing,
No, we
social
hadn't-
media, like
no,
nothing.
no.
So I see Nuno, he's tanned, he looks a little different. I'm like, oh, hello, Nuno. Little backstory. Nuno's always very nice to me, but it's because he always had a little crush on me.
I did.
And I always knew that, but it
You meant
was
to let him tell that?
We had slow dancing back in the day. Do you remember at the end of the club they'd play like a 1-2 Mariah Carey
Please
tune?
say you
I
did the
remember
last dance together.
We did.
No!
do one time. I swear we
Please say
did.
at the end of the night.
I'm
It
sure
was
we
one
did.
last
There
song
was
before the
one
lights
time.
turn on.
I think I remember wearing like some
Cute.
pinstripe suit. Who was a pinstripe suit to a club? Yeah,
Excuse
but-
me, yeah, you did.
Yeah. And I remember I think we did have a one-time dance.
Yeah,
Because
I
I remember
did.
someone coming up to me all hateful, like, why are you dancing with him? And I'm just like,
And little do you know, I know
why
him.
I've been like, yeah.
I know, but you're always so nice. And then, you know, when someone's really nice to you, and then you're like, "You fancy me," but you was always so like innocent about it and non-pervy.
Right.
So you know, Nuno was
Thanks
the guy
for
that it was always a pleasure to
clarifying
see,
that.
but he secretly fancied me. Fast forward 4 years or 5 years, we don't see each other. We see
Yeah.
each other in 2015, and I'm like, "Oh my god, Nuno!" So we start talking, have a few drinks, and then I'm just like, "I'm actually giving Nuno fever this time." You know what I mean? So. What?
I'm just like, ah.
The embarrassment
I'm
between them right
remembering
now.
Yeah, it's all coming back now. See, you pray for stuff long enough, you get it. I'm joking.
Wow.
I'm joking. I'm joking.
I know
I'm
she's
joking.
joking.
Sorry, I'm just looking for my humility.
I'm just looking for my humility.
No, but so you know how it is. Sometimes
Yeah.
when you go out, you know, you have a few cocktails or red stripes for me
Yes.
that night,
Was it
and
Red Stripes?
and yeah, we ended up going home.
We did.
together.
We went to my mum's place, wasn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
in,
in Victoria.
correct.
Yeah.
And so we shared an intimate moment.
We did.
We shared an intimate moment, and I thought it was really cool because for me it was like I slept with a mate, which for me meant more because of just trust issues I had with new people.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I thought, what a great storyline. Do you know what I mean? When we were younger, it
know.
didn't, the shoe didn't fit. But now, years later, I'm 30. You must have been 28 or 29.
Yeah.
And
28 maybe.
how great. We're
No.
grown-ass men.
Yeah.
Because how old are you now?
I'm 36.
So you're 2 years younger than me.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
So you must have been in your late 20s. And then,
Yeah.
fast forward, I'm doing a show in Ukraine. And I'm getting my hair done by my hairdresser. And then I get a call from one of my really close friends.
Yeah.
And he tells me some news that was really shocking to me and left me quite still because I was just like, well, why didn't that come from Nuno?
Yeah.
And what he told me, it was like, with some urgency, did you sleep with Nuno? And I was like, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
Nice
Yeah.
to see you too. And he was like, no, Cisco, did you? And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, well, because, you know, Nuno's left the country so much. He came back because he is now HIV positive. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, oh.
Right.
Because we had been physical.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I just remember at that point, I was just like, damn, I felt really, really shocked because I heard it from someone who wasn't even at the club.
Yeah.
It was like hearsay. And I was just like, I remember calling you with what I called, this is my hand clapping syllable days that I'm not that girl anymore. But I remember being really angry with
Yeah.
you, quite threatening as well. And I remember my anger where my anger came from was because of I guess it was kind of like, it felt like a betrayal because we had known each other for so long, but
Yeah.
also the stigma attached to HIV.
Then
I was just thinking about
especially,
myself.
Yeah.
And so I threatened him. I was like, if I do come back in 3 months with HIV, like me and you are going to see arms because that's not okay.
It's not okay.
It's not okay. The reason why I want to bring this story with transparency is because one thing no one ever talks about is when someone is told they have HIV, everything changes, even though people with HIV have healthy lives now. There's medication to make you undetectable, so you live a normal life.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no one goes to the psychology of why, for example, you reacted or did the way you did.
Yeah.
And that's important. So before we end the story of what happened there, I remember you went to Portugal when you found out to get a breather.
Yeah.
You went away because I remember
Yeah.
you coming back all brown and golden.
Yeah.
Like, you were sunkers for the gods, honey. And then you came back. So I know it was that year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It had
So
been
can you talk us through your story of how you found out or what it made you feel to the point that I called you? Yeah.
Yeah, of course. As until from when I found out about me being positive.
Yes, exactly.
Wow, that was...
Because we don't talk about that. We don't talk about that.
And we never even got to kind of, I was quite gutted, that I didn't disclose that with you, by the way, and I think I have apologized.
You've apologized,
I know, but still, it's something that I have held on to for many years, still. But then it was just so, like, I'd come out of like a 6.5, almost 7-year relationship that was quite... I wouldn't say abusive, but it wasn't like physically
toxic,
but it
Toxic
was very,
is the
very
word.
toxic.
Yeah.
And my self-esteem was quite low.
Right.
I mean, my soul, and who I know me. I know what I can handle, and I always knew there's probably a higher purpose. So I was like, okay, it's fine. Like, if you're throwing that at me, it's because maybe I can handle it, and I could see that it's a projection.
Yeah.
But I was coming out of this relationship, which was like, left me not well, and then when we had broken up and I was already starting to just get my life back together, then I got the news that I'm positive. And then obviously I had to then call up and be like, look, well, this is from a few months ago. I have to tell my partner, my first love, that I'm positive and, you should go and see and We ended up getting back together, and I was also told that person didn't have that wasn't positive also. So then there was this whole, basically I was kind of, I hate now because I feel like I'm like pointing at other people.
But this is your experience.
Tell your story,
it was
man.
my experience, and then I was told that that we got back together and wasn't positive. So and then I was in this kind of strange situation.
Because you thought that he had HIV and he gave it to you. Did you think
I didn't necessarily point fingers, but with things making sense at that point, it seemed that way. And then suddenly that wasn't the case. But I just kind of rolled on with it. I was like, okay, well, so graciously he's with me and I am and he's not. And we're figuring out this new kind of ground of how do we kind of navigate through this.
Yeah.
And then to find out about 5 months later that he was.
Oh, so he lied to you?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I kind of didn't understand. I tried to understand, why people maybe do things, because family and this and that. But it was just like, I came to you with such a quite difficult and completely life-changing situation, Anyway, we finished, which was, good. And then it became a bit more of a spiritual, personal experience within myself, seeing like how my state of being, my happiness had to, obviously, and then I had amazing doctors here in England. When I first found out that I was positive, I had this window period of about 6 weeks where I didn't know. And that period of not knowing, where my doctor, my GP at the time, she wasn't really ready to, it wasn't really her field to kind of inform people.
Mm-hmm.
She was like your local GP. She was your local GP, and like I was like, oh, I've got like my glands are a bit swollen and this and that, and I got really sick a few months ago. She's like, sounds like you may have caught HIV, and I just remember my whole world was like.
So she told you for a presumption.
Bloody
hell.
And
yeah,
then
without factual, that's a lot to drop on.
Yeah.
And then it was like 4 weeks of her actually confirming it to me, because I think she didn't want to break it to me, and she kind of was like, let's test, and then, okay, let's retest, because I'm not quite sure. I think she's trying to break it to me gently, but I remember that month not knowing I'm going to work, and I just like it just felt like I was in this bubble,
Yeah, it must have been a mist.
Yeah. I remember like what songs were out, what got me through that point.
Really?
Yeah. �11𝗪𝗓 a cappella, 𝗣𝗪cie𝗴𝗿𝗀𝗀 See My Smile. That was 2 songs that were just very like, just remembered all that. But in the end, I actually told my GP that, because I went and got tested. I went to Dean Street, and it was actually, when I did find out, I was extremely calm. I was like, okay, well, I'm really lucky compared to people in other countries, you know, like, to maybe that hellish month that I didn't know was
The
good.
worst part.
Because if I had known straight then and then, I would have associated it with when I had got sick and how sick I did get a few months. You know, I would have been like, my mind would have seen that as like the death, or, you know, like how strong
like that's what it
virus,
is.
you
Yeah.
know? And I think me kind of informing myself and then actually telling her and her apologizing, like, I'm so sorry, I kind of just didn't know how to tell you. You seem like such a nice, so, you know, I think she didn't want to, but yeah, anyway. Sorry, I'm like...
No, it's okay, we're here.
Yeah, so and then after that, that's when I kind of took some time out, because after also coming out of that relationship, it wasn't just because of that, and then it was like drugs had started to come into the scene, things that I used to be so very anti, and you
Was
know,
it like a vice, a coping mechanism?
no, I think it started within before that, and then it became a bit of like an escape, a bit of a, you know, like a confidence kind of, what I thought was, I can't really dance, or I can't really be funny if I'm not, you know, and it just became like a bit, I mean, so it was just like, actually, like, just take a step back, and I went to Portugal, and I took some good time out, and like with my family and just with myself. And
did you tell your family when you were in
yeah,
Portugal?
I was extremely open with, like,
Did you?
Yeah, which was, it was harder telling people around me than it was, I think, because in the beginning when I first found out, I took it quite, what am I going to do, have like the meltdown of a lifetime and just be like, you know, that's not going to help anyone. It's definitely not going to help myself. So, you know, I used to go in Dean Street, we have these groups, and it was like all people that were like newly diagnosed. And they would kind of tell us, don't look up, you know, different things online, because they can send you into these spirals that will be quite damaging. At that time, I was like also digging deeper into my own personal spirituality and like sense of the state of your soul and your happiness, and how that kind of eventually like vibrates through your body and your health. Sorry, thank you. So yeah, it was like a bit of it was weird, because there was while on one side I was going through that and understanding that, I'm also then battling this kind of escapism form of, you know, not dealing with what's going on, and also not dealing with like my mother, my work colleagues, people who really care about me, suddenly seeing like, okay, Nuno's got HIV now, he seems to be spiraling as well, like partying, going out, and just like on one side his career's like doing really well, and then on the other side he's just burning himself out completely, you know.
Right.
Were you spiraling because even though you were in the surface, you were taking it like, as to say, like a champ, but in reality you weren't honouring that you were actually really upset and you really worried?
I think a little bit. I was a bit. It was also been a bit, I think, of accumulation of stuff, and I think that first relationship really, looking back, did a bit
a number on
me, you know, like with then how I dealt with a lot of things, and even like, you know, like that night that we spent together, you know, that to me was quite new, to just have someone over at my house, to, you know, I'd just come back.
You just got back from Portugal.
It was and then it was like, how do I also communicate this to someone who I've known for so long, and like, you know, this is so nice. I didn't think it would get that far as it did, and then it was just like, this has happened, and I was under also some influence of other stuff. I did have other things inside my system, rather than alcohol, because I'd taken some stuff. So that is not an excuse, but it plays in, you know. And so it was just such a, you know, from being in such a nice moment with you shared, you know, like, because, you know, it was such a nice evening, and then it was just like, wow. So yeah, it was just, sorry, I've kind of lost my kind of...
No, you lost yourself at exactly where we stopped, because it was like, you were going... Dean Street, for our listeners and viewers who don't know, is a clinic that's specified for queer people. and it's on Dean Street in London.
Okay.
And it's great because if, for example, your scenario is I went to a party and then someone told me they had HIV, they'll see you that day and get you the testing that you need and the support that's also available. So it's
That's dope.
everyone can go, but it's catered specifically, mainly for queer people and trans men and women who through the GP could be a bit more judged or don't have the access, the tools to help us through,
Got
through
you.
what, let's quote unquote queer problems.
Got you.
Yeah, and they're extremely informed, and they're very, you know, they speak and they deal with you extremely well. You know, like in Portugal, having been there now and changing all my stuff to being looked after and followed there, oh my God, it's just so different. It was like a hassle and a fear to go to the doctors.
Yeah, it is.
Almost.
In
you know, in other countries, and even now Lisbon's so fast forward with like the queer community, and just in general, it's very like open and very like moved forward a lot. But even going to the doctors, like at one point I had to be off my medication for like almost a month when I switched over. And the doctors
What do you mean
just
switched over? Switched medication?
I was switching medication and I'd moved from, so they changed my medication, but there was just like about a 3-week window period, and she's just like, oh, so you're just taking your HIV out for walksies? I was just like,
Wow,
Very insensitive.
like you literally said that to me. Hey, you don't know what I'm doing.
Right.
If I'm doing anything,
right.
but like, and the way do you know what I mean? It's just different. You'd
That's
never
mad.
be spoken to kind of like that here. It's like, it's different, you know.
Oh,
But
it's quite degrading, I would imagine.
it was so like, raw, like really, you're like,
You're judging me and you're supposed to be the health
and you're
professional.
helping people. You're meant to be here, like, do you know what I mean? It
My
just makes you
goodness.
like not want to, you know, just,
Yeah.
you know, because then you're feeling like put to shame when it's like, no, actually, you need to be put to shame, woman.
Yeah.
Like, but obviously at the time, you're just like, really? Did she say that to me? Like, I'm taking out for walksies.
Yeah, it's like an extra layer that's not necessary.
Yeah.
So once I called in a very threatening tone,
Yeah.
I then have to wait for 3 months because it could
'Cause
take
then it
up to
was-
3 months.
Yeah, then it
And I
was-
remember I was choreographing a new show on ITV, which is one of the biggest channels in London, and I just felt like I was there and I wasn't, because as soon as I had a moment where you would go, I was like, I'm a bit like you, I'm realistic. I'm just like, okay, I have to prep myself if I do have HIV.
Yeah.
And what does that look like with the people around me?
Yeah.
What does that look like?
What does that look like in
judgments?
reality?
It does,
Yeah.
because I'd HIV in my circles was always talked about, but it was never present.
Yeah.
So Nuno at that time, you didn't know, but you were the closest that I had a HIV encounter to.
Yeah.
So it was obvious I wasn't equipped for what was happening, but I had to mentally prep myself. At the same time, I had a duty. I was head of a department, and I had to show up and show off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it was difficult because I couldn't sink into the job. Even though I felt I did a good job, I wasn't 100% present. I told my boss, because I just felt like I have to tell one person. And he was great with it. And I remember going to a festival called 𝗣𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀.
Yeah, I'll
And-
never forget that.
Of all dates to see Nuno,
Yeah.
the day that I found out my results, he happened to be there.
Really?
And what are the chances of that?
Yeah.
So 3 months later, we don't speak, nothing. And so I'm there.
And you
you're-
find out on that day.
So they, by a text, they're like, so if
Yeah.
they, the way in the queer space is no news is good news.
Yeah.
And if it is something, they message you. But back in the day, certain clinics used to actually either email you or send you a text saying you are negative for blah 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 blah.
Right.
So I'm in 𝗣𝗿𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, this festival in London, and I just remember going, I don't want to be here, but I need to get out of work mode. We just finished the contract. And I see a mutual friend of ours, and I don't know how he knew about the story, because I didn't tell him. I presume you told him. And he was like, oh, but Nuno's here. And I just went, to be quite honest, I'm not ready for that encounter, so just move. And then literally my phone went, and that sounds like the grinder sound.
That might have gone as well.
No, it wasn't a grinder then. So it didn't go, it just vibrated or whatever. And then I got my results, and I just like, what a time. But at the same time, I was just like, I remember you wanting to speak to me, but it was almost like I didn't want you to rob me from my moment of like,
course, well.
because you're already in my head. Ignorantly, I thought you robbed me of 3 months. So you're not going to rob me of this moment. I want to celebrate my
course.
friends now and get pissed and
Yeah.
not have to be like, oh, by the way, I'm negative.
Thank you very much. Yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I
of
mean?
course.
And so
Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember seeing you and being really standoffish to you and going, to this mutual friend, like, no, like, clearly we can't mix groups because that is not someone I want to see.
Yeah.
End up having the best time. Told one of my friends and my boss, because I went to the festival with my boss. Had the best time. What I had done to myself was, which I talked about in season 1, at late 27, I started making a list of things I didn't know. Like, actually, that's like about 23, 24, I started making a list of things I didn't like. When I got to my later years, there were a few things that crept up in life where I was like, oh, you've got work to do. And I just remember doing, I don't have HIV. And then thinking, oh, shit, that was actually with a mate. I didn't for 1 second think, you not telling me, what are the components of you not telling someone you've known for 10 years plus?
Yeah.
Not once, even after I found out, to be like, to tell you that I was negative and to be like, okay, let's talk about this from now on. It was just all me. And even though in hindsight, I probably had every right to react the way I did, it didn't coincide with the man I was trying to become.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and then I put myself in your shoes, and I felt really sad, because I was like, fuck. Even though it was done to me, this, a relationship is a two-way street, and a friendship has nuances, and I haven't checked up on you. So I didn't have your number at the time.
Yeah.
And so back in the day, you would speak via Facebook.
Yeah.
And I sent you a long ass message, and I was just like, written in a nutshell, I'm paraphrasing, but I was just like, Nuna, I hope you're well. I just want to tell you, from that instant that happened, like, I've completely forgiven you, and I hold no qualms with you or about that situation, but I also want to take this opportunity to apologize, because I didn't consider your feelings or what you were going through, because thinking about it now, the lead up to you not telling someone, especially that you're very familiar with, and the kind of that you've been waiting for a moment like this for so long, not being able to say to someone in a safe space of trust, fuck knows what you were going through. And I completely missed the ball.
Right.
It was important for me to take ownership of that, because I felt like, even though we weren't like best buddies, we were still friends.
But we always had such a nice,
really nice relationship.
Like
And I remember hearing your voice note, and it just felt like a massive, like the biggest exhale, and I just felt, oh my God, what took me so damn long?
Or?
No,
like,
you messaged
in
me
that,
back.
in that
like,
moment.
You messaged me back on that day, a few hours later. And I wrote a paragraph, 5 paragraphs, as I do. And you sent me a lovely, like, 1 minute voice note.
Okay.
And the voice note, it just, all I took from it was this massive exhale.
Good,
like,
you
were so grateful that you got to have this moment.
Yeah.
And I was just like, fuck.
I mean, I think with me, it did actually haunt me for a long time. Like, I was so happy that you were okay, and like, but it's something that actually, until when you messaged me recently when I was in Portugal, it was really like, oh, okay, now this does kind of feel like something that I can move on, because it's in the back of me a little bit. It's something that I've guiltily held on to quite a long time,
Of course, you did, because on top of what society makes you feel, I also...
It's not just that, because
was
it's...
ghetto fever to you, you know what I mean? I did scare you.
But no, but beyond that, just because it's not something that, had I probably been in my right mind and not been, you know what I mean? Like,
Under the influence,
like, I would have dealt with that a lot more differently. Absolutely. And not to blame it on that, but it's just, right is right and wrong is wrong. And like, that was not right, to jeopardize someone's actual health and life. Do you know what I mean? It's not. And I understand, because I've had that. I've been played like that, So,
We got there.
Yeah.
But we made it. And that's the most important thing. And I can also tell, which is important to me, that what you said to me, it was heartfelt, and you were really sorry. And I think that's also important, because it's one thing being the bigger person or trying to amend something that happened to you, but also if it's not reciprocated, like if it doesn't sound apologetic, or like they haven't learned from it, then it's a bit like, really, bitch? But each to their own. But it wasn't met that way, So I'm glad that that at least gave some release, because I know how it feels to have something replaying your head, and it makes you, it's difficult to...
Yeah, definitely. And then when there was all these other factors at the time that were going on, just because, and then I kind of spiraled into bit of drug addiction.
After that?
Yeah, after that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, probably like the following like 2 years or so, 2
Really?
years.
And
then
what was the components of that? Because by then you had come to terms with it, or not yet?
It was, but and then it became like, it wasn't even because of that. That wasn't really, I think it was bottling a lot of stuff in. I think
Okay.
my first relationship, like I said, really,
It really
like,
did a number in you.
yeah. So then it was coming out of that, but and then using that as as an escapism.
Yeah.
Because and then like I'd lost like 2 people that were quite close to me, extremely close to me in not very nice ways, and then it was just like that. So it just became escape, and then like not focusing on things that I like to do and that I'm good at, and just taking the easy way out very easily, quickly, and just being like this young guy in London who's like, oh, I've got lovely vibes. So like, all right, yeah, come, and just getting a bit lost in it. So
Always having moments.
yeah, so then obviously then I had to just kind of, well, that's when I went to, then I moved, like, then I, got more of a grip on it, got some help, then I moved to New York for a while, for
Did
like
you?
2 years. Yeah, that was
Come on.
cute, that was fun, that was good. I was working out there, I was illegally an immigrant working out there, but that was cool.
You know those ones do your
But
thing.
that was wicked. And then moving back here and being like, actually, like, I love London, but right now I think I need to move back to Portugal, which has been the last 5 years, and refix my home, reconnect with who that little boy when he left Portugal, like when he was
Right.
12. Like, what is it? What do you want to do? What are you meant to bring to?
I guess you were trying to finish off that spiritual journey that you were on before.
That got interrupted, yeah.
So
You know what
it's
I mean?
been a bit like, so I am now back here, and I'm like seeing circles coming, and like with this happening today as well, it feels very.
Oh, you
much
feel it?
like
You're seeing the
that.
full circle come back
I'm
around.
seeing like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of, it's mad, like it's nice to see as well, to kind of actually be able to see what's happening and have more clarity and kind of like, okay, and more strength within myself to not just get lost in the source and just, because I could.
I have a question, if you don't mind me asking. As a straight male, I don't understand the taboo about HIV. Obviously, I'm aware of the side effects of what it can cause,
Yeah.
but it's an illness, and all humans experience illnesses. Like, we've just lived through a pandemic where people are spreading an illness every day, and we still go out in the streets. We still, like,
It's because this particular one was always promoted with a death sentence, because when you get
Yes.
HIV, automatically you get AIDS,
Yeah.
and that's not the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that stigma and the propaganda that was pumped into that, unfortunately,
Still
has the
exists.
ripple effect.
Yeah.
And that, you think HIV, you don't think HIV, you think AIDS,
AIDS, yeah.
you think hives, I'm gonna die.
Okay.
And even as a gay man or as a queer person, you hear that and your mind goes there.
Like
and
I said about that, sorry.
No, please.
That month that I didn't know, but in that month I had time to kind of find out more, because had I just been told there and then, that would have been my
downfall,
Yeah.
catalyst.
that
or
would have been,
downfall,
but how I
That would have
saw
been
it.
your mindset.
My mindset,
Yeah.
like AIDS, I'm gonna die, boom, that's it, and then you'd have these Freddie Mercury and like these people that had died, and then just that, like telling my family and my work colleagues who I worked in one place for many years and I was very close, and I kind of informed like a lot of people around me at the time. And like, my friends and Didier and all that, like, so it was massive shock to everyone. And I found that it was harder than to kind of have to with everyone's emotions, because that's what suddenly, where I'd been in those rooms and speaking to the doctors and educating myself and then finding out about how my body is doing and my defenses and like, like that journey, which has been really interesting and good, thankfully. And then having to suddenly, I've got all this weight from, like what people, especially like our parents and our slightly older generation. Who
I think
lived
deal's the right
through
question.
Yeah.
I know you were trying not to say deal with, but to navigate and deal with how
because
they were
like,
now feeling.
Okay, it's a death sentence. It
Yeah,
literally
because that's
is.
how they saw it
That's
again.
how
Because
they saw it, because they lived through that.
through a
when
time where that's what they thought it was.
When that was what was happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, my parents lived through the 70s and 80s where people were dropping
Of course,
dead.
of course.
And
And that was due to, like, obviously the lack of information and science to help prevent that then though, right?
That too,
Whereas now
yeah.
we have these things.
We do.
Yeah,
We're
we
going to
have.
get into that. There's medication
so-
for
Yeah.
people with HIV to live a
Yeah.
perfectly normal life.
Perfectly normal life.
So
and-
is because to me there's no stigma attached to it, because I don't know
you're
if
not
I'm
ignorant.
because maybe it's just because I don't know, but like I don't get why then it still has this taboo when the world's evolving and we're accepting everyone and
It's
we're
a
in.
weird one, Nuno, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think as queer people, we ask the same question.
Yeah.
Why? Because dating is difficult for someone with HIV.
You can
Yeah.
get it.
You know, and we
Yeah,
will get
the
into that
beginning,
as
yeah.
well, because it's unfortunately it's one of those things. Like gay kids. Oh, it's okay. I love gay kids, just not my son.
Yeah.
Just not my daughter. But I love gays.
Mm.
I'll go to the parades too.
Yeah.
Just not mine, right?
Mm.
It's that. It's
Yeah.
like, we can talk about it. Of course, we know medication. I know there's some magic pill or something that you can take, but not you, right?
Yeah.
Not my own.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's just
I
something.
guess they
that-
don't speak about it in a way that they did when it was so rife, when it was killing.
killing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when
exactly.
And they don't speak about it with the same energy.
And now where there is the medication that is keeping you undetectable and healthy
Yep.
and helping you have a good healthy
Helping
life.
you thrive in life.
And then on the other side there is medication that is preventing you from catching the virus.
Right.
So it's now we're in this kind of, do you know what I mean? Like
Limbo?
people are like ish. It's a good thing, because eventually we can like, possibly move towards eradicating, the illness, or just in
It's like
general.
one step closer.
Well, definitely one step closer, but then there is a bit of a divide. Like recently, I was on Grindr, and I told someone about my been chatting. Seemed like it was cool. We're like head for like, okay, should we meet then maybe for a coffee? And then he asked me about my status, and I was like, well, it was there on the profile anyway. But and then I said, obviously, like positive on medication, undetectable. Boom, I got blocked. I was just like, oh shit, like I blocked, like, okay, just
Not
at
even-
least,
And-
all right, like,
Well,
all right, cool. Because then once you're blocked on Grindr, it's just like, all right, okay, cool, fine, no problem. Do you know what I mean? Like, at least, like, I found that, I was quite shocked with that, a little bit hurt, to be honest. Just because I'm just like, okay, like, imagine if I was someone that is a
As
lot more,
strong,
do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
really vulnerable. And, it's not,
Yeah.
that could send someone.
it's as if
you
you're
know.
being judged by that and not by you.
Yeah.
Oh,
and it's
totally.
like-
That's what it is.
But
Yeah.
what I
Yeah,
don't
it
get
is
is,
that.
but what I
Yeah,
don't
exactly,
understand
yeah.
is like you're being
But
judged
then
by
those
another.
people are the ones who want to be like barebacking and and
Right.
there's this whole other
Right.
like world that they only want that, they only want like unprotected and this
Well,
and that.
Well,
and-
you know what? Then it's a good thing you're blocked from them.
yeah,
You know what? Because at
Yeah,
least then the
what
like
could I possibly be getting
like
myself
you don't want to be with those kind of people anyway.
Yeah.
That are doing that stuff
Yeah.
and not being sensible,
Yeah,
or at least
yeah.
being aware.
yeah.
So those people that are looking for that,
But you know what,
Yeah.
boys? I'll admit, I was that person too. And my
You
my
was?
life changed. Yeah, my life changed completely. So obviously we had that moment, and so
Mhm.
obviously that wasn't the best introduction to
Yeah.
HIV. But even though we forgave each other, let's just say, and
Yeah.
we went forward, I have a preference of what type of sex I want, but I
Right.
can't have that on the bat. Just HIV aside, just other stuff as well.
Yeah,
of course.
And so, as you do on these apps, you know,
Yeah.
I'm straight no chaser. In the first 5 minutes, I'm asking last time you got tested, your situation. When I used to hear that that you were undetectable, which undetectable for our listeners and viewers means that you've taken the necessary medication, you are HIV positive, but you can't transmit the virus.
Right.
So you can actually have bareback sex.
Right.
If you cut yourself, don't worry. If the blood gets in your mouth, like, it's fine. Like, you're fine. You can't transmit it. It's like
Yeah.
99.9 something, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So there's a drug for that you take daily, and that should be enough. But for me, it was like a hassle of like, I don't know you. Probably because I lost trust it was hard to trust because I got introduced to the situation by a friend.
Yeah.
So why am I going to trust a stranger?
Yeah,
Are you
yeah.
taking medication?
Yeah.
How are you here? Maybe you want,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
dumb. So I didn't do it. And then one time I was feeling my oats and I was like, I want to shag. And
Feeling
so-
my oats.
Feeling my oats. You know, sometimes you just figure, oh, you like the outfit, and you're like, yes, I'm a 10 today, for sure. I look at 2. And
Feeling
so
my
I was speaking
oats.
to this little, I was speaking to 2 people at the same time. And it
There's
was-
little.
Yeah, well, I was wondering where he was going to go with that one day. I was speaking to this little.
No. There was 2 guys, and one was like, I remember like Persian-y, Trojan-y, right?
Right, yeah.
But his attitude stank, and I was just trying to let him. I try to let him like just sweep me up a little more to be like, let me just find something good about you because you're a twat, really, but
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
too nice to let this penis go. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
you know, sometimes you're like, oh, this is a rare find, and you
Yeah.
get really excited.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy who was really sexy but geeky looking, ginger bald guy, and I was just like, oh, both things that I like, but who's gonna win kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm only gonna sleep with one of them. And anyway, so I decided to go with the ginger one because I was like, Persian guy, twat.
Yeah.
I go to the apartment, and straight away I was met with like a joke because I have got this really long coat, and he's like, "Oh, that's very Oliver Twist of you," laughing. He had a little giggle, and I was like, "Oh, this is gonna be.
Cool,
it's not
yeah.
gonna feel like a wham bam shag and leave.
Yeah,
it's gonna be
yeah,
an
it's-
experience."
Yeah.
So I get in, and then I was like, I didn't ask the question, but I'm in there now.
Yeah.
And one thing about me, especially if you've listened to previous episodes, I used to do this thing where, like, if I used to meet men and they didn't look like their pictures, I would still shag them because I felt bad. I was
Felt
like,
bad, yeah.
Because I was just like,
Yeah.
what if
Something
you are?
me and my
you're
friends
fine
have
on that
spoken
line?
about. Yeah,
Why
yeah.
if I don't want to be the catalyst of you fucking topping yourself or being in a
Yeah,
bad
yeah.
mood or
We
getting
d-
insecure. You know, I've
I've done that before too as well.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Too many times, and every time I'm like, ugh. So with this, I was like, wait, this could be HIV. Like, I can't do that. So,
Yeah.
you know, I'm like trying to slip and slide in, but he's getting naked. I'm like, fuck, how do you say this? And I was like, Rago, what's your status? And he was like, oh, I'm undetectable. And he saw and he froze, and I froze, sorry. And he looked at me and he went, sit down. And he was like, just so you know, he happened to be a doctor. And he was like, so, and I was like, I'm so sorry. This is really fucking awkward, and I can understand if you don't want to shag, but this is my situation, and I should have done this, and I haven't, and I don't want to disrespect you in your house. And he was like, allow me to explain. So he took me through something that a gay guy at my age should have known. He took me through everything. He even had, for some reason, I believe, like a leaflet or something like that. It was weird. It wasn't like I was supposed to be there. And he broke it down so well. And I asked my questions, and he broke it down so well that I looked at him, and all I wanted to do was fuck the crap out of him. It was so sexy
did his
that I
due
got
diligence.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
said,
that I got
"I'ma get some."
educated, that I had the space to do it, but also he was just such a gentleman and didn't judge me for judging him.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so we ended up, he knew that it was a Mr. Right Now, but we had a really beautiful 2 or 3 months, right? And he changed my life because he made me grow at such a velocity, and also he made me take ownership for the lack of information I had for my community. And it's
Yeah.
important for me to know stuff like that, because not only to explain to my straight counterparts, but also for new school gays or people who might not get tested regularly. And so I only was informed of what suited me. And I was like, Cisco, you're a man of community. Like, fuck, that's so bad.
That's
So
so
he
true.
checked me in the most humble way, and I had the most incredible experience. He wasn't for me. I was in LA anyway. So when I went back to LA, the next boyfriend that I had was HIV positive, and I had no problem with it whatsoever. Like, not even like a flinch. And I was like, fuck, thank goodness for that man and and the grace that he showed me. Now I'm more informed.
Right.
I was going to ask before you even said that, so now you did, I'm going to piggyback on it. Is there like something or somewhere for like young gay people who are uneducated to go and learn this
The
stuff?
clinic.
But okay, so somewhere more accessible than go into a clinic, because already, like, if you're asking a 16 to 20 whatever year old to go to a clinic, there might be some embarrassment or some shame of going there.
It's idiot proof now. There's diagrams. Honestly, back in my wow, I sound really old. When we were teenagers, though, you had to go to the source. Now, if you're not comfortable getting a leaflet, honestly, from like symptoms to like medication, prevention, just put that, you get so much information, and it's so accurate. And it's
our
great
day,
how much you know. And the good thing about Google is, if you are 16 or even if you're not and you're still embarrassed and uncomfortable, listeners, viewers, you can get this information. So easy, just like simple as HIV medication, HIV prevention, just HIV in general.
Right.
Just educate yourself, because it's something so common that shouldn't be condemned, because there is medication to have people with HIV to be undetectable, which means that they live just as long as we do. They're just as healthy, and they don't transmit it if you do want to have bareback sex.
That's such a
No, but that's what it is.
such a way of just ending that part there. And you can have some bareback sex.
No, you can, because also when I got to LA after my boyfriend, I got on PrEP as well, even though he was on PrEP, because for me it was like my journey when it comes to STIs or any type of viruses. It's my journey. I'm not gonna get it because I was like, oh, I trust you. No, bitch. So I'm going to take my prevention too.
Yeah.
And when I split up with that boyfriend, I was like, oh, I definitely I prefer bareback sex.
Yeah.
So I need to make a decision.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm going to continue the bareback route, but I have to do the medication. And every 2 to 3 months, depending on how freaky I was, sometimes 1 month, I would get tested, because it's my responsibility for every single person that I go to that I'm negative top to bottom. Or if I do have something, you know about it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
But, dating, I was those people, to loop back, I was those people that I would never have blocked you, by the way, but I would have been like, oh, actually, no, something came up or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm no longer that person. So how does it feel now after being, first of all, are you one with your status?
Yeah, totally.
So how is it to
Like-
modern day dating? Because it feels like you're
That's
one,
the
but
thing.
people
At the
haven't caught
moment,
up.
I'm very much like, do I want to date? I think now I've been quite like, I don't at the moment.
Because of stuff like that?
No. Just actually like, I'm like, okay, I get a bit romantic with the fairies, and I'm just like, actually, you've got some like a lot of you stuff that you need to like. I'm not, and maybe I'm writing off romance as like, that's going to get in the way. It's not that. I'm just like,
Because you're like a Latino lover telenovela. Like,
yeah, totally.
slit your
fully.
wrists and like, let's
Almost, yeah. Too much.
Romeo and Juliet,
no.
star-crossed lovers. Yeah,
Can
you're
be a little
intense.
bit like that, yeah. So I'm just like, all right, you're back in London now. It's kind of work time and you time, and like just focusing on that. And if I meet someone along the way, cool.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm off Grindr at the moment, but I was on Grindr when I first arrived. It's like, oh, back in London, let me check this out. And then it was just like, no. And also I met some boys out and about, and I did have that conversation, and it was met with
resistance and ignorance.
yeah. And so it was just like, okay, cool. And they're young'uns. They're probably like, they're in their 20s, yeah. And they're very like fast forward with what they're getting up to and what they're doing. And that's no judgment. I'm quite surprised at like how
much sex has come by.
Yeah,
Or
not
gone
just
on.
sex, and just in general, like, and what they know and what they're up to, and that party scene, and like what they're doing, like, that we didn't do in our day. I don't think so. Red stripe or two, and we're good, and it was just a different
Era, yeah. Now
era.
it's party and play. Everyone's getting fucked up.
Yeah,
on
and it's just
drugs.
like, raw, okay, and then there's that, but then it was just like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm just being honest. Yeah, I'm positive, and I'm on meds, and it's just like.
Does that chip away at you though? Because it's almost like, do you feel? I'm just thinking, if I had
I
come
was
to
just
terms with
surprised
my
by
age,
it.
Really though.
I was, surprisingly surprised by it. I thought, like, being in Portugal, I expected more of that, because it is a bit different. It's a bit more it's not behind, but it's smaller.
No, it
it's a
is.
smaller-
Yeah.
London's
it
a
is,
few-
yeah.
yeah.
Come on,
In that
London.
sense,
Yeah.
it is.
So then when you're meeting these young people who are doing this and that and that and that, and they are like also on PrEP, they're like, oh, have you got PrEP? I'm like, oh, it's cool. These girls are forward.
Yeah.
Like,
I get what you mean. It's
I'm not putting them down. I'm like,
No.
they're on it.
Yeah.
They're like, okay.
So
they're
why are
on
you
it.
judging? Kind of thing.
Yeah. I
So
guess
then
you
it was
like.
like, well, you're doing that to prevent what I'm informing you that you've asked me. I was like, no, I'm not on PrEP. I'm actually on medication. And like, but
Right.
then that's a problem.
That's a problem.
So just a bit surprising, but
Yeah, because I would imagine that would break self-confidence. It's almost like you have to like almost revisit who you are on a daily basis or per encounter.
I get what it did a little bit. It did make me be a bit like, and that's when I was just like, I think I want to get off the like kind of Grindr stuff and
Yeah,
just,
find some a
be
bit
just-
more substance.
yeah, like meet. If I'm gonna meet, let me like meet properly.
Yeah.
Not properly. Like, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that.
But that's just not your avenue. You've just
Right
realised
now,
and
yeah,
recognised
no.
that that's not for you at the moment.
36. I just kind of want something a bit more. I've
Yeah.
got friends. I'm not saying I'm not welcome to or open to meeting new people, but just like not in that kind of
In that space.
because
That makes sense.
There's this whole other attachment there's this whole other world really,
Yeah.
and whereas some people are just kind of dip their toes in it, but there seems to be like this whole it's like kind of, I don't know. Yeah, it's like this kind of community of like on this, on that, on that.
Yeah, so gay sex, well, I think, what I'm hearing is that gay sex has evolved a little bit now, and now it's a bit difficult to have sexual encounters without being really drugged, without it being more than one person, without it being choreographed chill outs, as they're called.
Yeah.
And it's, even though that always existed, now it's very a la mode and very
It's
fashionable to do that, which
yeah.
if you're going to catch anything, and I'm talking about any STI, it's going to be in these moments,
Yeah.
because these guys literally are the same people or the same circles moving in different sexual spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Literally.
it's very,
Yeah.
it's much more
It's-
promiscuous
it
to when I
is.
was younger.
Yeah,
And then
it's
to
like,
be
I
met
just wanna
by some
throw on an
judgment in
outfit
that.
and hear some R&B. It's not popping anymore.
It's not, girl.
It's
It's now
not.
umcha in like little.
Umcha,
yeah,
umcha.
it's
I can't take
different.
too much
It is.
umcha, bro.
I like umcha, but
I
not that
don't
kind
mind,
of
but
umcha.
no, yeah, it's not. It's not. It's just like, oh,
Look at the straight boys. They're trying to translate what
is it
umcha
music?
is.
Yes, bro.
Oh, okay.
He said,
bring a
I
fan.
don't know what umcha is.
It's not my vibe.
No, we don't.
No,
We
no,
don't.
no. Gonna rock your body.
So, I want to ask a question. While you were going through the psychological, I guess, adjustment of your HIV, what would
Yeah.
you say to someone going through that? What would be advice? Because there's not a rule book to it, but there isn't conversations
Yeah.
that
My
are open.
personal advice really is just take a deep breath. Literally can't like breathe. Personally, it's what I told myself. I started to kind of it's just like no matter how bad you are, there is someone, or how you feel, there is someone who's probably going through much
10 times
worse.
worse,
Do you know what I
yeah.
mean? And like we have a lot of help, and even if you don't feel like you can get help or that you have help, that help is accessible to you. Maybe you don't have, you're not in an environment that just breathe. Like within yourself, you have what you need, and it is just like to be gentle, kind of to yourself. Like your state of being and your state of mind. Like if you start spiraling into like thinking, okay, this is a death sentence, this is the death of me, like when your immune system is low, like if you're going through depression, you're physically, you will start feeling not
Right.
do you know what I mean?
And you'll start not being well.
And that's where like like cancers and things that I believe can also come from like years of anger or frustration or
You're right.
sadness. And I feel like with HIV, which is like a direct attack on your immune system, it's a bit kind of the same kind of law, which is something that at the time I had to kind of claw myself through that. It was like with the doctors, that was really helpful. Like the people I had helping me were great, but also it became a bit of a within myself thing. Like I made up little songs, little mantras that were like I used to actually like imagine like my body like fighting off all these little like cells attacking like the HIV ones. I know it's silly little things like, and I just had little jingles that would make me like laugh whenever I realized that I personally was spiraling into like a low frequency or sadness. I would find something to laugh about. Or like I'd have like little things, like trees were like my thank you. Like I'd see a tree, like okay, like thankful nature. Or when I'd feel crappy, like I'd make me laugh. I'd be like, the only way is up. Cheesy as fuck, but it would make me laugh, and it would just slowly kind of train myself to come out of that hole that you can get yourself into.
So be responsible for your own happiness.
Yeah, is what I can say, and it's not easy, it's not always easy, but there is a lot to be thankful for, and like there's so much stuff going around, going on in the world that can make us sad. So just try and bring a bit of joy to yourself and to others if you can, really.
I'm thankful for you speaking here today, bro.
And me.
Yeah.
Thank you, man.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah, no, seriously,
It's been amazing.
Oh.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I'm going to ask you a question. Last question to wrap it up. That ex, that was the catalyst to a lot of change.
Yes.
Have you forgiven that person?
I have, yeah, actually, and I would really like to see that person. I've not seen that person
For ages.
for a long time. That person, I think, or from what I know, hasn't forgiven me, or has turned something into something toward me.
Right. So they're not fully at peace with it.
Yeah, probably that. So, but I know that actually now that I'm back in London, I do feel like it's gonna happen soon. I had to forgive that person many years ago. I also put it in a box and didn't deal with it.
Yeah.
And so it's taken a few years to kind of accept my responsibility for allowing a lot of that to have happened. Do you know what I mean?
Taking 100% for your portion.
Yeah.
That's what we say in the show.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, forgiveness, absolutely. Like, because otherwise I'll just be sick.
Yeah.
You know, like, and no, I'm not about that. Like,
Good for you, Nuno. No, it's
No.
true, because heartfelt situations like that, it's difficult to reclaim your power, and it feels like you have.
Yeah.
You're in a great space. You seem happy. You're healthy, and we really appreciate you coming here, because you know HIV isn't a box. It isn't, and there is nuances. And I hope this story, you can see just how much it can affect other people, but also by working together and showing some grace. What it can do as well, because if someone has got HIV, it's not a death sentence, and if you can help, you should, just like in any other situation.
Yeah.
So my progressing question is, if you are met with HIV, man or women, what will you do? Because what you can do is one thing, but what will you do? Does that mean you're going to get tested more, have more conversations about it? Does that mean you're going to educate yourself more so you're not the outsider in situations? I think straight, non-binary or gay, we can all do a bit more to have more resources so we're more prepared.
Knowledge is power.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nuno, for
Thank
joining us. We
you.
appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you for
And
having
remember,
me. It's been great.
my lovely listeners and viewers, to always keep it real without the spiel.